That's terrifying. Does it come back? That's usually what happens with a tsunami. Oh yeah, here it comes. It goes out, then it comes back in.
There
Okay.
you go.
Yeah, probably should have left. Probably should have left a while ago. Ooh. Dude. I hate the ocean. So we're trying to buy Greenland. I want to know why. I got a couple videos here. It was an interesting. We're trying to get this place. That doesn't happen in America, but I guess the Don, he wrote The Art of the Deal. We'll get into that in a second. But let's check out this video about Greenland.
Non-continental island in the world, about 3 times the size of the US state of Texas. And despite being thought of as entirely ice, about 20% of Greenland is, in fact, relatively green. This leaves quite a bit of land that, in theory, could be habitable. Still, only about 56,000 people call this vast island home, making it the least densely populated region of the world. So why do so few people live in Greenland? And why is it called green if it's so icy?
Hi, Jeff.
Welcome to Geography by Jeff. Today we're off to explore the largest island in the world, Greenland, and more specifically, find out why so few people call the largest island in the world home. While the answer might seem obvious, there are some surprising geographic features at play that go well beyond the single word, ice. But
Tell me
before we
about
get
it,
to
Jeff.
today's episode all
Let's
about
get into
Greenland,
it.
be sure to check out this week's podcast episode, also all about Greenland. In today's episode, Hunter and I dive deep into the geopolitics of Greenland, why the United States tried to buy it a few years ago, and why it wants to be independent from Denmark. You can listen to that episode right now by clicking this link or by checking out the description below.
I'm from Massachusetts. I don't know why they use a G to say Jeff. That's just because, I don't say ours. I say ah. I don't know.
So the discussion with Warner Brothers was,
Greenland, the world's largest non-continental island, has a surprisingly deep history. And it's so surprising because it's a land where the unforgiving Arctic Ocean meets the North Atlantic Ocean, and where ice dominates the landscape. The history of Greenland is as unique as its geography, deeply intertwined with the lives of the indigenous peoples who have called it home for thousands of years, and the European explorers who stumbled upon it centuries later. The earliest inhabitants of Greenland were Paleo-Eskimo peoples, also known as the Sakak, who are thought to have arrived there around 2500 BC, near what is now known as Disco Bay. The Sakaks were followed by the Dorset culture around 800 BC, and then by the Thule culture around 1080. These indigenous peoples, ancestors of today's Greenlandic Inuit, were skilled hunters and adapted remarkably well to the harsh Arctic environment. They hunted marine mammals like seals and whales, and traversed the icy landscapes using sleds and kayaks. Greenland's first known European visitor was Icelandic Viking Eric the Red. According to the sagas, after being exiled from Iceland, Eric sailed westward and landed on Greenland around the year 982. He spent several years exploring the island before returning to Iceland, where he touted Greenland's potential for settlement. His sail
Fun fact, my ancestry, I'm 1% Iceland. And 1% Jew. Didn't know.
pitch worked, and in 986, Eric led a group of colonists back to Greenland, establishing settlements on the island's southwest coast. These Norse settlements, known as the Eastern Settlement and the Western Settlement, thrived for several centuries, engaging in farming, hunting, and trading ivory from walrus tusks. However, by the 1400s, the Norse colonies in Greenland had mysteriously vanished. Theories about their disappearance range from climatic changes to economic isolation and conflicts with the Inuit. What is clear, though, is that with the departure of the Norse, the Inuit were once again the sole inhabitants of Greenland. It would be a couple hundred more years before Europeans would once again involve themselves with the island. In 1605, the King of Denmark and Norway sent an expedition to reassert a claim to the island. This marked the beginning of a new era of European interest in Greenland, which was primarily driven by the pursuit of whaling and the fur trade. Over the centuries, Denmark established a colonial presence on the island, which continued until the 1900s. Today, Greenland is an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark, but the majority of its population is Inuit, not European, which is probably how they've been able to survive in such a cold and unforgiving environment. But before we get to the physical geography of Greenland, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. More fun geography videos are just a single click away.
Just as a fact, whenever I review someone's videos, I always leave the original
Greenland,
video described
often
below. So if
imagined
you want to
as
watch
a
it there without my
monolithic land of
commentary,
ice and snow,
that's where you find
has
it.
a geography that
Thanks, Jeff.
contradicts its icy reputation. Known primarily for its massive ice sheet, the second largest in the world after Antarctica's, Greenland also features unique landscapes in areas not
That's
covered
cool.
by ice.
The rocks.
Additionally, recent discoveries have revealed
Glaciers.
intriguing features beneath its ice, including what could be the world's largest canyon. The Greenland ice sheet, covering roughly 80% of the island's surface, is a colossal expanse of ice well over a mile thick in some places. This ice sheet is a critical part of the global climate system, playing a significant role in sea level rise due to climate change. In fact, if all of Greenland's ice were to melt, it's estimated that the sea would rise by as much as 25 feet. And this ice is constantly moving, flowing outward from the center of the island and forming dynamic glaciers that spit out icebergs into the ocean. However, Greenland's non-ice covered areas, comprising about 20% of the island's land mass, presents a different kind of landscape. These areas are primarily located along the rugged, fjord-indented coast. The south and west coasts in particular are the most ice-free regions and host the majority of Greenland's population. This region features a relatively mild Arctic climate, allowing for limited agriculture in the form of sheep farming and even some small-scale vegetable farming in sheltered locations.
Fjord. Honestly, this is obscure. Leave it in the comments below, but it's a serious question. Fjord. Is Ford derived from fjord? Like, genuine question just came to mind, you know?
The coastal areas also feature a tundra biome where hardy species of mosses, lichens, and low-growing shrubs manage to thrive. The wildlife includes Arctic foxes, hares, and a variety of bird species which migrate to Greenland during the short summer. And while all of this geography above or outside of the ice is fascinating, under the ice, Greenland gets even more interesting. One of the most significant discoveries beneath Greenland's ice is a complex topography of mountains, valleys, and plains. In fact, a recent discovery has found a Grand Canyon that runs almost the entire length of Greenland and could potentially guide the flow of ice towards the sea. Greenland's geography is extreme. Whether you're above the ice or below
Yeah, that
it,
makes sense.
there's simply no place on the island that makes living there easy, which is
So that makes sense. Like, if there's a canyon, if you got big walls around it, any crack in that canyon, that water is going to break off and flow out that way. So that's probably predictable. If you look at it from that, yeah, it could be predictable, which is, you know, climate alarmists. Like, I mean, it's a thought, it's a theory. It's nice. I think the reason we want it is for military, which next time I get a clip, I'll comment on that.
perhaps not surprising for those that have made the island their home today.
Topgolf is introducing free
Skip the
playtime.
ads.
Anytime. Waggles on a Wednesday.
Sorry about
free.
the ads.
Saturday morning smile.
Bye-bye. It's cold. Spoilers.
Greenland, despite its vast land area, is one of the least densely populated regions in the world. And while this might seem obvious, Greenland is very cold after all, it doesn't quite explain the whole situation. After all, there are few people living on Greenland than in Iceland, Norway, or Sweden, all of which are located at the same latitude.
I
and
think
get
it's
very
'cause they
cold
don't
as
have
well.
big
So why
business
don't
or
more
open
people live
markets?
in Greenland? Firstly, Greenland's extreme climate does play a significant role in limiting its population. There's no way around it. The island is largely ice, which leaves only about 20% of land available for people to inhabit, mostly along the coast. This ice cover significantly restricts habitable areas. In contrast, though Iceland, Norway, and Sweden are also at high latitudes, they have much larger ice-free and arable areas. In fact, it's the Gulf Stream in the ocean which moderates the climates of Norway and Sweden. As warm water builds up in the Caribbean region, it moves northeast towards mainland Europe, moderating temperatures all around. Greenland, situated just north of the primary Gulf Stream, does not benefit from the same effects.
That makes sense.
And Iceland, while also situated a bit north of the primary Gulf Stream, has a milder climate than Greenland due to much more volcanic and geothermal activity. But also, the geographic isolation of Greenland contributes to its low population. Situated between the Arctic and North Atlantic Oceans, Greenland is remote, with limited access to the outside world. This isolation has historically limited migration and trade opportunities. In fact, the vast majority of Greenland's population is on its west coast, nearer to Canada, further isolating it from European countries. And being a large, cold country themselves, Canada never established large cities in its northern territories, giving few opportunities for Greenlanders to have nearby neighbors.
So it's the 51st and 52nd state.
In contrast, Norway and Sweden have been integral parts of European trade routes for centuries, and Iceland, while isolated, has developed strong air and sea transport links with both Europe and North America. Economically, Greenland's opportunities are also more limited compared to its Nordic counterparts. The island's economy is heavily dependent on fishing, with limited diversification. The harsh climate and permafrost make agriculture almost non-existent, limiting food production and variety. And if you're a country with a large population, you either need to be able to grow your own food like the United States can, or purchase food from others like Saudi Arabia does with its wealthy economy. Greenland, unfortunately, can't really do either at the moment. Finally, infrastructure development in Greenland is a huge challenge, and it's very expensive due to the harsh terrain and climate, which impacts the quality of life and economic opportunities.
We're up
Connecting
for
the
it.
disparate communities through the fjords and harsh climate is incredibly expensive. In other Arctic areas, such as Alaska, roads need to be repaved far more often. This puts an infrastructural limit on how many people Greenland can sustain. Today, Greenland is home to just over 56,000 people, making it the least densely populated region in the world. About 18,000 Greenlanders live in the capital Nuuk on the west coast. This would be followed by Sisimiut with 5,500 people, Ilulissat with 4,600, and Asiat with just over 3,000 people. The rest
Dude, this is smaller than some towns. Like, I think the town I live in might have more people than that in it. You know, the next two towns, like, this, like my state rep has to deal with more people than this. It's amazing how, like, it's not populated. I think if business came in, like, let's say it did become part of the United States. Let's just say we're having fun here. I think big business would move in really quick and make the investments.
Rest of Greenland's population is scattered in smaller towns and villages, mostly on the western and southern coast.
I don't think it would be massive population growth, but
The names
probably a million,
Greenland
maybe.
and Iceland have confused people for centuries, primarily because they seem to contradict the physical characteristics of these places. Greenland, largely covered by a vast ice sheet, is anything but green for most of the year, while Iceland, though it has its share of glaciers, also boasts green valleys,
It's pretty.
hot springs, and geothermal areas. The origin of these names is a blend of historic, cultural, and perhaps even marketing considerations from the early Norse settlers. The story of Greenland's name begins with the Norwegian Viking Eric the Red. According to Icelandic sagas, Eric was exiled from Iceland around the year 982 due to some murders he committed. He set sail and eventually landed on the shores of a vast icy land. After spending a few years exploring the region, Eric returned to Iceland to recruit settlers for this new land. It is said that he deliberately chose the name Greenland as a way to attract settlers, making it sound more appealing than it actually was. The southern coast of Greenland, where Eric settled, do have some greenery during the brief summer, but the name was likely exaggerated to entice more people to
Maybe.
join the settlement venture.
He could have got there
Iceland's
in
naming
like
story
a
is
warm
a bit more
period,
straightforward,
couple of warm
but still
years.
contains elements of irony. The saga suggests that it was a Viking named Floki who gave Iceland its name. Floki sailed to the island from Norway, but unlike Eric the Red, he had a less favorable experience. After a harsh winter, Floki climbed a mountain and, upon seeing a fjord full of icebergs, named the land Iceland. This was in contrast to the relatively green and fertile valleys that also characterize much of
beautiful.
Iceland, especially in the summer. These names, chosen by Norse settlers, has stuck through the centuries, despite their apparent
I like
contradiction
that.
with the geographic realities. Some historians and linguists have speculated that there might have been a mix-up or a deliberate swap of names as part of Viking humor or storytelling tradition, but there is no concrete evidence to support this theory. Greenland is cold and icy. There's no doubt about that. Still, the reasons for the island having such a small population extends beyond just ice. The orientation of its settlements towards Canada and the lack of a moderating influence of the Gulf Stream each contribute to its population distribution. And
Okay. Will we buy it? I don't know. Trump wrote The Art of the Deal. You can actually pick up a copy of this down below. My affiliate link, commissions are earned. I think that he's either negotiating to get some sort of trade deal, actually wants to buy it because he wants to cement his name in history, you know, like the Louisiana Purchase or something along those lines, or he wants, you know, some sort of like the energy or something, or trade routes. From what I've heard, the ice is subsiding around Greenland. So now that we can run a trade route up north around through the Arctic, because we can break ice and go through Greenland, if we can control that and the Panama Canal, I'm going to do a video on that, then we can control all the trade routes in North America. It makes sense. And then if they have energy and his goal is to get energy, I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't do it. All right, so you pick that up down below. The original video is down below. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate your time, sharing it with us. Do you like my new room? It's nice. I'll see you guys in the next video.